What's going on, Cole? I'm a dumbass. I was logged into a different account, went live, was out there for 5 minutes trying to figure out why nobody was showing up in the chat. Finally clicked on my little emoji up in the corner, and it says you're logged in as Dull Guy. So I did my first live as Dull Guy tonight for 5 minutes. So there's that. And then when I went and logged back in over here, the first time I tried to go live under Sharp Guy, it just kept clocking and clocking and clocking. So what the heck, man? It's too much dang work to try and get on here, man. No, I'm just an idiot sometimes. Yep, it does happen. Yeah. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Round up our usual dirty dozen. What's up, Grizzle Bear? Everything's great, man. Once I figured out how to get online. Yeah. Too silly. And it's funny because I knew I wasn't online because I couldn't find myself online. What's up, Brutal? Oh. See, that goes right in line with my little kind of message for the night or for the day or for the week or whatever. But it's kind of funny that that happened. Me having a hard time getting online today because this morning, um, I don't know why I always set an extra alarm. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people set a lot more than I do, but for whatever reason, that extra alarm saved me this morning because the alarm went off at like 9:15, and usually I'm walking out the door to go bowling at 9:30. So I got up and put everything in hyperdrive, got to the bowling alley, and I still had marks on my forearm from where my arm was under my pillow. You know, you have, what do they call those, sperrits? Is that what it's called when you have a mark that's left from something like that? Sperrits. I think that's a sniglet. Um, but I got to the bowling alley, and I mean, I was still wiping the sleep out of my eyes when I was practicing, and my first game showed it. But after bowling like a 179 or something like that, my second game was a 250, and my third game was like a 220. So it ended up being a decent morning, but it would have probably been a better morning had I woke up on time. And what's going on, Marty? What's happening? I don't know about that. Well, it is now that you're here. The boner party, aren't those the ones that like were up on the mountain and the airplane crashed and they had to eat each other? Is that the boner party? What's up, Neil? So I had I've been having trouble with my computer for school. So I was dealing with the folks from tech support, and they had two different people take over my laptop at the end of last week. And I guess when we switched the user over to the administrator, it put me back on the Sharp Guy ATX email or Google account. Right now, I'm on the Google account that I use for my main account, which is dman67. So that's my main Google account, and that's the account that I have my YouTube under. So apparently, when we switched it over to the admin account, it switched it over to Sharp Guy ATX email Google account, and that is the account that I have my second account set up on, which is Dull Guy ATX. So tonight, when I went to log in and do the show, I went through the whole process, set up the show, had everything ready to go an hour in advance. And turns out that I did my first live for about 5.5 minutes under Dull Guy ATX. And I couldn't figure out why nobody was showing up. And then I went and clicked up in the right corner, and sure enough, it pops up and it says, Dull Guy ATX, would you like to switch accounts? Well, duh. I'm a moron. But my point is I could have just given up and not done the show. But had I done that this morning and gave up, then I would have never shot that 250 or that 220. So, sometimes it doesn't start out great, but, we have control to some level over how it works out in the end. One boner in attendance. Knife Nut, what's going on, man? Wasn't there like a kids show that had a character named Boner? Yeah, he was the next door neighbor or something, and he had a crush on the daughter. I'll think of it here in a minute. Oh. Ozzy wants to say hello. Hello, Ozzy. Hello, Ozzy. Hello, Ozzy. His name is Osborne P. Coltrane. He's part Ozzy Osbourne. And he's part Coltrane. And the P stands for puppy. Ozzy. Isn't that right, buddy? Isn't that right, buddy? And then this here is Blazer. Come on. Or we call him Dirt. Call him Dirt because of his tongue. He says, I got a derp. I got a little derp. Get your foot out of my shirt, boy. What are you doing, you crazy punk? I took him on a big long walk before the show, so he's all wore out now. Isn't that right, buddy? This heat down here takes it out of him, so taking him out after 9:30 at the very earliest. It's about all they can do to make it around the short block. But since I've only been taking him out once a day, I've been trying to take him out on a longer walk. And then when I get them home, they're done, they're out. But even if you think about how much heat's radiating out of the ground, even an hour or two after sunset, I mean, I'm wearing shoes, so I'm not feeling that heat radiating off of the concrete and the asphalt. But they happily go every single night and do their walk. Go round and round. We've got some woods across the street, but we haven't been back there in a while. It's pretty well-used path, so not necessarily one of the best paths for. We got a few people who like to walk off leash, and I'm not a big fan of people's big dogs running up on us. So, and then neither one of my boys are fixed, so we're not allowed to take them to the dog parks. So most of the time we just take them and find some place where there's a good, good sidewalk. We have quite a few of those in our neighborhood, so that works out pretty good. But I ended up shooting a 640 today. We ended up winning 6 out of 8 points. We're still in first place. And I posted the high series for the season last week on Wednesday, so we'll see whether or not I can keep that up. But I was actually really happy to bowl a 640 because I don't normally do super well down on 1 and 2. For some reason, bowling next to that wall always is a challenge for me. I don't know if it's a visual thing or a mental thing, but I've done well down there, but I've also done really, really bad down there. So today was kind of half of both. So I'm glad I got to pull it out. So I've been carrying this around because I was out doing some work in the garden, and I've got probably about 5 or 6 knives in my beater collection. So I was trimming down a bunch of tomato plants, and some hollyhocks were ready to come down. But this was one of the first knives that I got. I got in one of those General's boxes from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. But it was one of the first knives that I got that had a fuller on it. And I kind of like it. I can get that tip of that finger in that fuller and reverse flick it. Makes it real easy to take it in and out of the pocket and use one-handed, and it's got a flipper on it as well. But the funny thing is you know, we get attached to some of these knives just because they fit your hand right. In this case, because it's a beater. But you know, the funny thing is the beater that I've been carrying around and using the most, I showed it multiple times on the show. The beater that I carry around the most is actually not a beater at all. It's a titanium Kubi Vagrant that I got, and I've told several people this story before, but I got it from LTK, and that's just my favorite knife. Easy in and out of the pocket. It's got the speed hole. You can reverse flick it. You can thumb flick it. I mean, it's just perfect. The weight was good. So I've been using that knife a lot. But when I think about going out and grabbing a beater, this one always jumps in my pocket just because it works well. To answer your question, Mr. Beefer, it's a benchmark. And this is like the cheapest of cheap knives. This is your gas station knife. This is a $9 knife from SMKW. But with that fuller flick and just the size of the knife being perfect, if I'm grabbing something that I don't care about, this is the kind of stuff that I grab. And this one has stuck in my collection. I've gotten rid of a far better knives on paper, but this one fits my hand, fits the job profile that I have for it, and I don't have to worry about taking one of my nice knives out there and losing it in the garden, like I've seen some other people do. Ooh, you got some storms rolling in, huh? Where are you at, Knife Nut? I've noticed they've been using this term on TV a lot, but we have a heat dome over top of us right now, and that's going to keep all of the rain that can push up from the coast away from us and keep the storms coming in from the west to the north of us. So pretty typical summer pattern for us here. We're getting ready to hit 100 for the first time here in the next couple days, but it's been hot. It's been hot, not terribly humid, but it's been hot. And we can get humid. We can get Houston humid, but that's not a heat dome, and you should probably have a doctor check that out, Kyle. What's going on, Dr. Drew? So I'll tell my goof. I'll tell you guys my goof for those of you who are just coming in. So I had some guys doing some tech support work on my computer, and they took over my computer and they changed my my user over to my other email address because that's the email address attached to the admin. And in order for them to do what they needed to do, they had to have admin rights. So we switched over from one email to the other. Well, I didn't realize that when I came in and started setting up my live for tonight. So about 9:15, I set up my live an hour in advance. And then I came in here right on time and I started my live and got about 3 or 4 minutes into it. And I couldn't figure out why nobody was showing up. So I'm looking on my phone trying to figure out who else is live right now, where everybody's at. I don't see anything going on. So I'm like, well, what the heck? So I click on the icon up in the corner. And sure enough, I'm logged in as Dull Guy ATX instead of Sharp Guy ATX, which is my second account, which makes it real hard for me to go stealth. You know, when you have your second account as Dull Guy ATX, people kind of figure it out pretty quick. So I just did my first live tonight from 10:15 to 10:21 as Dull Guy ATX before I realized what was going on. So then I quickly logged out and logged in as DMan67, which is my Sharp Guy account. And as soon as I got everything set up to roll, it just kept clocking. So it clocked for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then finally, I backed out of that and started it over again, and we were good to go. So, man. But I'll stand by my story. I'll blame it on tech support. But I mean, if you think about it, you know, if you're going to go out and dig around in the garden and, you know, cut stems and stalks off of plants, dig around in the dirt. But the big thing is possibly lose it. That's why I'm not carrying this around out in the garden, even though it would be easy to spot, even though I have been carrying it a lot. It's not a user beater. I don't even know. It's probably, you know, just fine. Everything I put it through so far has been great. Used it to cut a lot of food, a lot of fruit. Goes through a tomato like nobody's business. The belly on that thing is just makes it such a good slicer. I did a rotisserie chicken, and I'll tell you what, I cut that breast up. It looked like it was done by a professional there at Chipotle. I'm glad to see the it's endless, man, endless. Oh. So another question for the chat. I got one of these Tinkers back when I first started collecting. Does anybody carry a Swiss Army on a regular? Because I thought I would carry it, but you know, since I have another knife, I kind of don't. And you know, it's funny. I think if you were to really look at what knife I use more than any other knife, is my SD. I have an SD on my keyring, and that is probably my most used knife that I have because it goes with me just about everywhere I go. So I don't know if it's because the SD that I'm not, you know, that I never carry this because that SD has, you know, little scissors on it. It's got my little toothpick on it, you know, so I don't carry this very much. But I was just curious. I know some guys carry some of the, what are the aluminum ones called? I sent one to Patina. But they make those aluminum ones that are a little bit, you know, maybe half of the tools on this one. The A-locks, yeah. I think that's what it is. But I got one of those in green in a mystery box from one of the big blade stores. It wasn't Smoky Mountain, but it came in one of their mystery stockings. And it was green, and he didn't have one in that particular color. So I sent it out to Patina. for his collection. Yeah, the scissors on the SD, and the funny thing, pen blades. Um, I actually figured out early on that the SD was my most used knife, and now if you check every single, at least all the women, if you check all the women in my family, every single one of them on their keychain or on their key fob that they wear around their neck or whatever, every single one of them has an SD and a little rechargeable flashlight. Every single one of them. I mean, talk about the perfect gift, and it keeps on giving. And then I also got, if you were to check, like my daughter, she's got like 4 or 5 knives that I've gifted to her. A couple of knives for camping, gifted it. Did I just say gifted it? Um, she's got a couple knives for camping. She's got a big machete, and then like a camp knife, for cooking. And then I've got her a couple knives for in her truck. I got her a Case Sodbuster Junior folder, and she's got a fixed blade, about a 5-inch fixed blade. And I had her put it um, on her seatbelt down by where it connects, because when I was a truck driver for all those years, that's where I always kept my blade. I always had like a 5 or 6 inch fixed blade right there on my seatbelt. That way, if I ever had any issues over to my window side, and then also I had a blade if I needed to cut myself out of the seatbelt. But I set her up with that. And then if you were to go and check out my mom's car, she's got a Olight in there, and then she's also got a Sodbuster. Um, yep, she's got a Sodbuster, and then she's got her SD and her flashlight on her keychain. 2 or 3 egg whites, half a stick of butter, melt, stick it in a bowl, baby, mix it with a wooden spoon, add in a cup of flour. Huh. Take it away, chef. 95%? Yeah. Well, it's funny because that's like even when I had Keith make me my package opener, that's what I told him. Be as obnoxious with it as you can, because that's kind of the oxymoron of our sickness. Is that most of us are using them to open boxes of other knives. I mean, if you were to do the actual time, that you use your blade, more than 50% of us probably use our knives the majority of the time opening other boxes of knives. So, it's kind of funny on that level. So when I had Keith make this, and I saw some of the other projects that he had done and that he had built for people, I was just like, that's kind of funny. That really does make it funny. And I think KC has one, and I think Lefty had one that he was using for a while that was like a leaf spring from an F-150. But this is a hole punch, or a punch. Yeah, a hole punch. Um, but this is from an American, what's it called? Hargrave, made in the USA. And then he just did his thing with it. And I'll tell you what, I feel funny, opening envelopes with it, but it's kind of it's kind of cool, man. It's kind of cool. It does the job, and it's sharp as hell. I need to clean it though. It's all boogered up. I was working on earlier. I was working on stropping up my carving knives. because I can bring the carving knives in the house and get them stropped up. That way, when I do go out in the shed, um, I don't spend time out there in the heat um, trying to strop up um, the small blades. But I was telling somebody on a live this week that probably one of the best purchases that I've made, and it wasn't even a purchase actually, it was a swap. I traded an SE6 that was just a little bit too big for my liking. I traded an SE6 for an entire set of strops. So I ended up with 3 strops at 3 different levels, and then he sent enough compound for each strop to last me 20, 30 years, honestly. It'll probably go bad before I can use it all. But I got 0.25, 0.50, and 1.0. And then I went ahead and got another strop that was 2-sided, a paddle strop. And I have 2.5 on one side of that. And on the other side, I just left the leather. And I'll tell you what, the better and more frequent I get at stropping my knives up, the less actual sharpening I have to do. And like even here on Keith's Skinner that he made, not that I believe that it needed to be made better, but even though I hadn't used it that much, I got to tell you, hitting it on the strop here for a little while brought that thing right back to hair shaven sharp. The only thing that I got to say about bringing your knives into the house and sharpening is if you are a pet owner, just pay attention, because my silly boys will just dive into my lap sometimes. And I haven't had a close call, but they've got my attention a couple times for sure. They have definitely got my attention a couple times. Let's see what we got here. Do I have a piece of paper? Yes, I have a piece of paper. How about a piece of cardboard? Yep, that's sharp. I like it. I had a steak last weekend, and I had this on my hip, and I'll tell you what, that thing destroy a New York strip. It destroy your New York strip. Let me tell you now. Let me tell you now. Milton, what's going? Oh, let's see what we can do here. All right, is that everybody? Beefer. All right, is everybody moderated now? I think so. Where are you at, Pens Blades? Nebraska. What part? Welcome. Tennessee here near Nashville. I can pull up the. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I worked at the beef in Sioux City, Iowa, or Dakota City, Nebraska, but I lived in Sioux City, Iowa for about a year when I was when I was 21. That year was what made me decide I didn't want to work for a living. But yeah, the whole Midwest is lit up. Has anybody done any hookups with Brynite flashlights? It's the very first company that's now reached out to me and now is asking whether or not I would like to check out some of their flashlights and do some reviews. You love Brynite, huh? I told them yes. I'll give it a whirl. Well, the I think Brynite is the one that I'm getting. The is it says it's from that same section of China where they make all the knives and stuff. But I mean, I probably dropped even on sales because sales is probably the only time I go. But I've probably dropped $300 or $400 a year the last 2 years at Olight. I don't spend a lot of money on them, but like my Warrior, I got a 15th anniversary Warrior 2, I think, that is copper and blue. And even though I've spent $50 more on a bigger, supposedly better flashlight, that's my go-to light. I mean, that's the one that if I'm going out with the dogs or heading out camp. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and fill out her little request form and see what they send out. 901, 91 degrees. I bet we're pretty close. Um, 86. 86, but we've got 73% relative humidity. So it's so humid out that I guarantee you if I were to go out in the backyard right now, that there's already dew all over all of the grass. It's already completely wet. Always cool. You know, it's weird because I've lived in a lot of different places, and as much as I hate to say it, um, when I lived on the coast in Southern California, that was probably for me that was the ideal weather. Um, from time to time, it would be cloudy in the morning, but that's when I usually rode my bike. So having it cloudy in the morning when I was riding my bike really wasn't a big deal. And then once those morning clouds burned off, the fact that there was hardly any humidity, even being that close to the ocean, that was my favorite. That was my favorite. You know, Washington State, the temperatures were really great, especially for being somebody who wanted to be outdoors as much as I did. Washington State's temperatures were great because I don't remember it being ever very snowy. I mean, we'd get a little bit of snow from time to time, but not much. But it never really got hot, hot. And even as wet as it is up there, it just didn't seem as humid as it does, which is kind of weird. It seems much more humid here than it did when I lived in Washington State. Got two of them now. Cool. Yeah, if you can keep that humidity down, it's not terrible. Even when we lived in the Inland Empire in North San Diego County, and we were kind of back by where the desert started, that's what made it doable. Even though it was a little bit hotter than it was out on the coast, it made it doable because there wasn't any humidity. And even, oh, how old was I? 18, 19? I was like 19 years old. I lived in Palm Springs or just outside of Palm Springs for a year. And it was amazing because they put in two golf courses within a matter of the 6 or 8 months when I first moved there. And you could tell the difference in the humidity in our specific area just because of the completion of those two golf courses. It was amazing how much water that takes to keep one of those things running. And it was far more noticeable because when you're in the desert and it's much more arid, when you do get that kick up in humidity, you can feel it a lot more. It's 1,000 lumens, but it's phenomenal, better than some 2,000 lumen lights. Yeah, it's pretty amazing the difference in some of these things. Because I got one of those X4s, and that's great. I mean, it's freaking super powerful. I think that one was like 2,600 top. But for my needs, that was just over the top a little bit too much. I mean, it's a great knife, I mean, a great light to bring camping. You can see all the way across the whole lake. Um, but I've got some lights that actually put out a wider field of light, and that's the one thing. Like when we go out and want to light up the whole camp, like at dinner time, and not have a light right in your face. I've got a couple lights that do that put out a larger field of light, and that kind of makes it nice too because some of those are even pretty spendy. But it's kind of funny. I've got one um, right up here. This light came out of a shit hits the fan pack, and I got to tell you, the it's got a little stand and it's rechargeable, but this thing puts out a ton of light. And when we camp, a lot of the times we're doing hammock camping now. And if you take this thing and put it all the way back so it's shining up into the trees above you, this thing will illuminate the whole camp for about 2 hours. And then it has a higher setting. So I also take this one down when we're doing some night fishing, because when you get that thing up close to the bank and you need to be able to see, you don't want to be fumbling around with a light. And I like having lights that you can put on the bill of your cap, but having the whole area where you're fishing at illuminated, it's kind of nice because this thing is like day and night, big time. And I think it only retailed for like $40, but I haven't found anything from Olight that does the same thing that this thing does on our camping trips. Oh. New Brunswick, Atlantic Canada. So I have some really good friends from Indiana. In fact, their daughter, their firstborn, was one of the things that triggered us to actually decide to have kids, because I was not anti-children, but I really didn't see having kids in my future when I was in my 20s. And these were our friends. They were the first ones to actually have children in our friends group in Indiana. And they went on a trip to Jamaica for a week, and we looked after their daughter Macy for the week. And after that week, it was just timing. The second wife asks, whether or not I still am thinking no on kids, and I was like, well. So we decided, and then quickly committed to children. But young Miss Macy is now in her mid to late 20s, and she has gone off on quite the adventure. She started being a nanny in Iceland back right when she got out of high school, and worked for several families. And then she met the love of her life there. And then a couple years ago, she married and moved to Iceland. And I'm talking like out in the middle of nowhere, Iceland, not near the Reykjavik or anything like that. But the funny thing is the one thing that she says that she missed the most is that there was not very much live music that wasn't like there was a lot of like folk music and stuff, but there wasn't a lot of music for like young people. So she, not single-handedly, but she was the individual who got everyone together and got everybody on the same page so that they could get what's that guy's name? The redheaded guy who plays the acoustic. I'll think of it here in a minute. But anyway, she convinced him and his crew to come to Iceland and play a show, and then actually got the VIP treatment because she was the one, Ed Sheeran, yes. She got Ed Sheeran to come out and do a show in Reykjavik, Iceland. And she got the VIP treatment because she was the one who put the whole thing together and really convinced him to come, check out an underserved musical, community. And it was pretty amazing to see everybody, because, you can understand. I mean, it's like not everybody's going to go tour Alaska. And I've had several people said that Iceland kind of reminds them a little bit of Alaska. But it's also amazing to see some of the video and photos that she sends out of the activity, the volcanic activity between where she lives and Reykjavik, Iceland. Apparently, they got to travel like 100 miles, and they have to go right past that lava field where all of those eruptions, or I guess not eruptions, but lava flow has been taking place over the last couple of years. And some of the photos and video is just stunning. I mean, just stunning. PT-16A tactical 3000 lumen. It's insane. Cool. Well, thanks for the info, Beefer. Well, and that's what I was going to bring up, is it's one of the places that I haven't been. I've been up to Maine multiple times and lived there for a couple of years. And that area, as far as the climate, I was good with it. The only thing that I could say that I was not in a complete agreement with up there was in the summertime, the black flies bite like nobody's business. And I haven't been too many places. Down in Kentucky, the black flies were really bad. And in Maine in the summertime, the black flies were really bad. make it so you can't even hardly wear shorts. But I'd like to go visit Iceland, and I've got a connection, so. Oh, really? I've heard Australia is like Texas in the sense that there's a lot of critters that'll make you uncomfortable. Chunks out of you. Yeah, they do. So I've done the main ones. I've done the main ones. I did Japan when I was a kid, for a couple weeks because of a student exchange program. That was kind of cool. But I've been to a lot of Central America, a lot of Mexico, a lot of Canada. When we lived up north, Canada was like the regular fishing mecca for us. Going up into Canada was like that was the main reason why we went to Canada. And then also when I played competitive softball in my 20s, we used to play a lot in Ontario. We would play up there quite a bit, and then they would come down and play in the States as well. Sandflies. Oh, yeah. In fact, what was her name? Alanis Morissette. When I was in my late 20s, before she got popular, we were up there, and I guess that area of Ontario where we were playing ball was her hometown. And before she got famous, she came out and sang the national anthem at the beginning of one of our softball tournaments that we had out there. Yeah. And then the weird thing is like down here, a lot of people say that they have a hard time with the mosquitoes. But I think our saving grace is we live next to a green space, and that green space, um, we have a lot of people who are very very pro bat here in Texas. We have a lot of giant bat colonies in the city, but we have a lot of people who put up bat houses, and I think that's one of the reasons why our area doesn't see nearly as many mosquitoes as other parts of Texas do, is because we have such a high bat population here. If you've been to the city, you know that our main bridge that goes through downtown over Lady Bird Lake has a giant Mexican free-tail bat population of over 2 million bats. And there are multiple other locations around the city that have giant bat populations as well. And a lot of people don't connect the dots that bat population eats all of those mosquitoes. So a lot of the mosquitoes that we would have probably otherwise had aren't an issue here because of the high bat population and because we foster a great environment for them. Helps a ton. I think if I grew for like 2 years, I might be able to do a really, really poor job of an Amish, but it's so patchy. I can't get anything through here, right here. It's just too feet. So we'll see what goes on with this with Brynite, and I'll either include it in one of my random lives that I do here throughout the month of July, but I won't be doing a Tuesday night late live until August. But I'll do some cool stuff. What's going on, Mark? What's going on, Five Door, Mister D? Um, so, but I might include it in a live. It just depends. I'll definitely do a live from Vegas, at least one, maybe two. See what kind of shenanigans me and Demonic can get into. Okay, what's happening? Um, so I'll definitely do some random lives throughout July. I might save the Brynites until I get back. We'll see what happens. But anyway, appreciate you guys, and thanks for coming and hanging out. Even though we got a little bit of a late start, I'm glad we got figured out and we're able to get out there on the airwaves and say hey to everybody. For those of you who are getting your stormy weather, be safe, and I'll leave you with the ting. Oh, it's such a good sound. Such a good sound. And for those of you who missed it last week, yes, I did cut my thumb live on air. First time for everything. And the crazy part is that it was my bowling thumb, but we were able to figure it out and get through it. I bowled with a Band-Aid on my thumb last week. Thanks for hanging out, y'all.